Do you feel frustrated when it's time to negotiate with that sole supplier, that single source provider of products and services that you need to renegotiate a contract with every year? This is one of the challenges that professional buyers tell us that they have most often. When you're on the buy side of an organization, if you're a professional buyer, generally speaking, the two biggest challenges that you face is negotiating with sole suppliers, so when you have no other alternatives, or negotiating internally within your own business, so getting your internal stakeholders to lend their support and give their approval to the purchasing plans that you come up with. My name's Jan Potgieter, and over the past 13 years I've had the opportunity to work with some of the world's biggest companies, Fortune 500 businesses, FTSE 100 organizations, some of the world's best known brand names in more than 46 countries, and I've had the opportunity to consult on large transactions, many multi-billion-dollar transactions. I've trained face-to-face about 8,000, just a touch over 8,000 people, and I've negotiated on camera with more than 3,000 people one-on-one. So I tell you this because I want you to know that I can bring perspective. I'm by no means the only source of knowledge on negotiation, but I like to bring the perspective of experience so that we can look at the practical stuff that can make a difference to the way that you negotiate in a way that will improve the results that you would be achieving from your negotiations. Now, when you're looking at negotiating with sole suppliers, there are a couple of key concepts that you need to be thinking about, right? So, number one, we know that the way that you set objectives for negotiation, the way that you anchor the levels, let's just use price as the example, right? Let's say the way that you make the opening offer or they make the opening offer will create an anchor and an area of focus around price in that negotiation. So you have to be very careful in considering who should be making the first offer in the first place. Now, when I ask people this question, I have a whole bunch of people that say to me, well, clearly, as a buyer, you let the seller make the first offer. Or some sellers would say, well, you let the buyer make the first offer. People don't seem to have too much clarity on who should be making the first offer and when they should be making the first offer. And this can often run interference. It can set you up for failing and for overpaying when it comes to negotiating with sole suppliers. Let me offer you an example. Have you ever been in a situation, or can you identify with a situation where, let's say you've been in an environment where you're looking for a job, or you're interviewing for a job. Who makes the first offer typically in that environment? Is it the person who's interviewing you, or is it you making the first offer? This might not be as obvious as you think. If your interviewer is experienced, what they're going to do is they're not only going to make you make the first offer, but they're also going to anchor you around what you're currently earning. So they're going to say to you, what is your current salary? What are your current earnings? And can I see a copy of your pay slip or a copy of your tax statement to back up what it is that you currently earn? Because you see, have you ever been in this situation? Let's say, for argument's sake, let's say, just to use round numbers, make this simple, let's say you're earning $40,000 a year in your job, and you want to apply for a new job. Let's say that job offers between $50,000 and $60,000, depending on your experience and qualifications, right? Now, can you identify, or have you come across somebody else maybe who's been in this situation, so you can identify with the way that you might think about this scenario? So let's say you're earning $40,000. This job potentially offers between $50,000 and $60,000, and now you're getting ready for the interview, and you're thinking to yourself, well, you know what? Man, I'd really love to earn that $60,000, but I'm only on $40,000 now. Probably, if I ask for $55,000, maybe that won't make me look like I'm overly ambitious, too cheeky. It might position me better versus the competition. Well, hang on. Maybe if I ask for 50, that's entry level. That might be better. I could even ask for slightly less than 50 because it's still better than what I'm earning now. See, what am I doing here? What am I doing? I'm negotiating with myself, but more importantly, I'm lowering my aspirations. I'm lowering my expectation because of my view of the relative position of power. Because I think that the interviewer, the company, holds more power than me, what am I doing? I'm moderating my expectations. I'm lowering my expectations, right? So this is a key input into who should be making the first offer. Now, think for a moment, think for yourself. Now, if you're the sole provider, if you're thinking to yourself, let's say I'm putting myself in the shoes of the sole provider, and I'm thinking, well, ABC company, they can only buy this product or service from us, so I should be really competitive in the way that I put together my proposal. No, that's not what I'm going to be thinking. I'm going to be thinking, hey, hang on, these guys can only buy this from me. I tell you what, let me load that price. Versus, think of the opposite. Let's say I'm a supplier of commodity stuff. Let's say stationery, right? And you buying on behalf of ABC company. You put a tender out there or a request for proposal. I know as a stationery supplier that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other providers around me. So I better be very competitive on the price that I put in. Very different mindset that I have if I'm the sole supplier, right? So what we know is that this concept of anchoring, so whatever happens first, so let me ask you, do you agree that whatever happens first will influence that which follows it? Okay, it's called the law of first impressions. Whatever happens first influences that which follows it. So it's very important we think about negotiations, how we set things up. What do we say at the beginning? How do we shape the objectives? How do we transmit those objectives in such a way that it sets us up to get the best potential results? So here's what I'm going to suggest you do. When you're negotiating with, you're going to be careful that you also see this from the perception of your counterpart, right? So it's not necessarily a reflection of reality, because your perception is what governs how you respond, not the reflection of reality, right? So if you perceive, or if your view is that your counterpart perceives themselves as being less powerful than you, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and let them make the first offer. But if you perceive that your counterpart is more powerful than you, if you think that they think that they're more powerful than you want to make sure that you make the first offer, right? Because the law of first impressions, the law of anchoring states that whatever happens first is going to influence that which follows. And I've demonstrated this, practically whenever we do, certainly the advanced level training we do, where we film folks one-on-one and we set them up in a simulation. I prove to them practically how I create an anchor and I get them to move in my direction immediately, just by the way that we set up the objectives around the negotiation. So you can literally engineer this. Nothing works in absolute terms, but of course, 80-90% of the time, this is going to work. So make sure that when you set objectives, when you engage with sole suppliers, make sure that you give them a target price. Make sure that you say to them, this is the budget that we have. We need you to meet this target. Because think about the difference in mindset now. If you just ask for a proposal or you look at that renewal, they're going to come in and say, look, we're going to ask, let's say for argument's sake, $300,000 for this. But if you come in and say, look, for the next year, we can only afford to spend $210,000 on this. We need you to work with us to reach that target. Now, they might be happy to get $250,000. Or now their opening offer might only be $250,000, not $300,000, because you've created the focus point around the number that suits you. Clearly, you're going to set yourself up so that you can make some concessions and lift what you're able to pay from 210, because we know that one of the key contributors to deal satisfaction is receiving concessions. So remember that key piece. You always want to be able to make concessions. Anyway, make sure that you think carefully about who makes the first offer, and when you're up against a sole supplier, make sure that it's you that makes the first offer. Hopefully you've gained some insights from this little video clip. Here's to your continued success. Thank you for watching.